So we'll give everybody just a few more moments to join. But this morning we'll be talking about the Center County COVID Relief Block Grant. And we have Mark Higgins, Commissioner from Center County, as well as Mary Kay Williams, the Center County Relief Block Grant Administrator, joining us this morning. So we're going to go ahead and get started. If you're joining us here, you're joining as part of an SBDC webinar, and we are here to present about the Center County Relief Block Grants this morning. The SBDC services we're located within Penn State University, and some of our services are consulting, training, information services, resources, and referrals. So if you're a small business in the Center region or in any of our other counties that we represent, we invite you to reach out to us and we will get you connected with any of these services. All our services are mostly free. Sometimes there's a small fee to cover some of our training courses, but our consulting free services are absolutely free. So Mark and Mary Kay, I'm going to invite you to go ahead and unmute and start your video so that we can get started today. We'll be talking about, again, the Center County Commissioner's Office, the COVID Relief Block Grant Program that is getting ready to be launched here in the next few days. What it is, who can apply, who can't apply, the intended uses of the funds, where to apply, and of course, we'll be taking some question and answers as they come in. So I'm going to go ahead and stop my PowerPoint, and we're just going to begin a conversation on the Center County Relief Block Grants. So again, we have Mary Kay joining us from the Center County Relief Block Grant Administrator, and also Commissioner Higgins, Mark Higgins. Thank you guys for joining us today.
You're welcome.
So I was wondering if we could just start out with kind of an overview of the Commissioner's Office in case people who are joining us don't really know much about what they do. So Mark, would you mind just kind of giving us an overview of the Commissioner's Office?
Sure. Roughly 48 states have county commissioners under a broad variety of names. In Pennsylvania, thank goodness, we do call them commissioners. The Board of Commissioners is the chief governing body of Center County. We're elected every 4 years by the citizens of Center County in odd-numbered years. The Board of Commissioners is currently composed of the chair, Michael Pipe, vice chair, Mark Higgins, and then Commissioner Stephen G. Dersham. Their authority is primarily of an administrative nature, and it's set forward in the 1955 County Code of Pennsylvania, as well as a broad variety of other legislation adopted by the Pennsylvania General Assembly. The commissioners appoint personnel, supervise county offices and programs, and contract on behalf of the county in broad variety of program areas. And when I say broad, I mean broad. We have over 50 different departments, and the county has staff or contracted staff that works with our citizens from a couple minutes after they're born until, in the case of our coroner, until after you die. We're the 7th largest direct employer in Center County. If we count the hundreds of different contracts we have and contract employees, we're probably maybe as high as 4th. Our departments cover areas that seem to interrelate, like the property assessment and then property tax collection, obviously very closely related. But then I just saw Ron Williams this morning, who heads our Department of Weights and Measures, which has absolutely nothing to do with our Office of Aging. So the counties handle about 40% actually of the state of Pennsylvania budget passes through counties. So as fiscal managers of the county, in Center County, it's about an $84 million budget. We're responsible for developing and adopting the annual budget, assessment of property, levying of taxes, and as necessary, borrowing of funds of capital projects. We're involved in a broad variety of countywide initiatives for such matters as increasing economic development, assisting agriculture, working with a broad variety of nonprofits. The county contracts with well over 100 different nonprofits every year. We also monitor the efficiency and effectiveness of county-provided programs and services. I serve on 33 authorities, boards, and commissions, which is a bit high. The average commissioner serves on anywhere from 15 to 17. We serve on the Board of Assessments, the Salary Board, the Retirement Board, the Employees Benefits Trust, which I chair, the Prison Board, along with other county elected officials, and we serve on dozens of human services and economic development boards. So where does that put us in terms of giving grants to small businesses? The Coronavirus Aid, Relief, and Economic Security Act, which is abbreviated CARES Act, was signed into law on March 27th of this year. It was a $2 trillion economic relief package, which aimed to protect the American people in terms of the public health and economic impacts of COVID-19. The CARES Act provides economic assistance on a very limited basis for local governments and much more broadly for American workers, families, and small businesses. Act 24 of 2020 was signed by Governor Wolf on May 29th. This legislation provides $625 million in CARES Act funding by means of block grants for the counties in the Commonwealth with populations of less than 500,000 people, which is 60 of the 67 counties, through the Pennsylvania Department of Community and Economic Development. This funding is strictly to support COVID-19 related activities to offset the costs of direct county COVID-19 response, to assist businesses, which we're talking about, and also the 35 municipalities in Center County to provide behavioral health and substance abuse use disorder treatment services, fund nonprofit assistance programs, and deploy broadband to unserved and underserved areas. On Thursday, June 11th, DCED released some very initial guidelines for the COVID-19 County Relief Block Grant Program. On Wednesday, June 17th, the Center County Board of Commissioners submitted an application for $14,664,804 of block grant funds. And then on Tuesday, June 23rd, the commissioners approved a contract with the DCED for the full block grant amount and an accompanying resolution. And about 2.5 to 3 weeks ago, we actually received the funds from DCED. Which makes this quite difficult is we have until December 30th to spend all of the money in an approved fashion. If we do not spend the money in an approved fashion, you may have never heard this term before, but in government, we're terrified when people use the term clawback, because if we're spending this money in ways that are not approved by the federal government and the state government, they can literally come to the county and say, hey, a couple $100,000 of that 6 million or so you gave small businesses, we didn't agree with the way you handed it out, give us the money back tomorrow. And we'll have not much of a recourse because the state of Pennsylvania is 40% of our budget. So to help with the workload and to assist with the huge amount of paperwork involved, we did hire Mary Kay Williams, very happy to have her on board. We were looking for somebody with a background in government, especially county government. She has that. We were looking for someone who knew the nonprofit world. She was the director of Center Foundation for a number of years, and also somebody who also understood small businesses. And Mary Kay and her husband themselves actually run 2 small businesses. So we were very pleased to have her on board, to have her start immediately. And is this your 3rd or 4th week now, Mary Kay?
I believe it's my 3rd.
It's her 3rd week on board.
Yeah. So I've actually been working with Mary Kay a bit as well. And you did describe kind of, I know you guys have been really, really busy. You've been trying to get out the, work on all those guidelines so that the funds are spent properly and well, right? Yes. Can you speak a little about the relationship that the SBDC has in all of this right now?
Sure. So the commissioners took a look at the $14.6 million. We were allowed about $200,000 for administration. And then we had to divide what was left into 7 buckets. Far and away the largest bucket, at least in Center County, because the spending of this funds is significantly up to commissioner decision, is for our small business grants. And we thought we need help with this. So we reviewed the economic development groups in Center County, and we very quickly came to the realization that the SBDC covers this county and a couple other counties, and so they're seen as being pretty neutral. So we spoke with the director, and I think it's assistant or associate director of the SBDC we have a good relationship with, and said, hey, we really need a lot of technical assistance with this grant. And so they've helped us develop the application. They've helped us with just some basic statistics. I'm trying to remember the exact number, but I think it was roughly there's 4,600 small businesses in Center County, give or take.
That's right.
And we thought the SBDC has enough staff that they could help us with the development and administration of the grant application process. And of course, being another governmental entity, they're very familiar with federal and state loan and grant programs. Plus, we figure that at least 25% of our applicants are probably going to be current SBDC clients, and that doesn't count the percentage that would be former SBDC clients.
Yeah. Yeah, I know we've been, kind of working together, trying to get this grant program organized, and that's been great. And I've been working a lot with Mary Kay. I was going to turn it over to Mary Kay unless you have any other kind of overview of the commissioner's office that you wanted to give.
No, just wanted to stress that of the 67 counties in Pennsylvania, Center County is devoting one of the largest shares of its block grant to our small business program. A lot of counties our size are devoting $1 million or $2 or $3 million to the program. Counties several times our size are devoting somewhere in the ballpark of 6 to 10 million. So on both a raw number standpoint and a percentage standpoint, Center County government is one of the most aggressive in the state in aiding our local small businesses.
Oh, that's great to hear. Mary Kay, let's talk about this Center County Relief Block Grant a little bit. Let's start with a really simple question. What is it called?
Yeah, there we go. So we like to have acronyms, so it's the crbg grant, which is the COVID Relief Block Grant. And so we are really very, very happy to be able to offer these services to people, and we'll get into some of the details of that. But CRBG.
Yeah. CRBG. So as we go along in this next hour, I just want to remind you, CRBG will be referring to the Center County Relief Block Grant. But I also want to encourage you, if you have any questions, if you're on Facebook, you're welcome to drop those in the comment section. If you're in Zoom, you can use the Q&A feature, and we'll take those questions as they come in. So Mary Kay, who is the CRBG grant intended to serve?
Sure, thank you. So as Commissioner Higgins mentioned, there are different components of this grant, different spokes of the wheel, so to speak. And the main one that I'm really excited that we are serving, and I'll talk about some of the others, is, as Commissioner Higgins mentioned, is we are really focusing in on small business. I know from personal experiences and just, talking with so many constituents, that this is a really, really tough time. And so what I'm so excited about and what Center County did, instead of just, kind of saying the buzzwords of, gosh, these are unprecedented times, they actually did something about it. They went out and I got the grant, and so we're able to serve people. And so as Commissioner Higgins mentioned, much of this grant will be for small businesses. And when we're discussing small business, we're talking about businesses that have 100 or fewer employees. That's the determination, except for if there is a tourism industry or a tourism business, they can have over 100 employees, but that's the primary parameter when we speak of small business.
And I think we've discussed before too, that they should be headquartered in Center County. Is that still part of the grant? Yeah.
Yes, because this is, like as Commissioner Higgins mentioned, other counties got these grants. I believe all but maybe one received the grant. And so our focus is, we're here in Centre County, this is Centre County government, so we want to focus on our Centre County businesses that are having difficulty, our Centre County employees that may have been laid off or having challenges through this business loss, so we want to focus just on Centre County.
Okay, good. And what type of businesses? I know I work with a variety of different types of businesses. Actually, the SBDC was given permission to work with nonprofits throughout the disaster relief, which we typically don't. But are there certain type of businesses that are eligible to apply?
Sure. So we, you know, any organization that's an LLC, corporation, partnership, sole proprietors. So that's the major businesses that we'll be looking for. As Commissioner Higgins said, you know, there are about 4,700 businesses just in Centre County. We have a large geographic area. So I want to be real clear, this is the entire county. This is for Phillipsburg, this is for Snowshoe. This isn't just, quote, State College, this is all of Centre County. So we want to reach out to all the different businesses that are out there. And so this, you know, please start thinking and start getting your documentation together for this.
Okay. And we had maybe discussed a second round of funding for nonprofits. Is that still something that's on the horizon?
Yes. So the grant does cover, and since we're talking to the Small Business Development Center, this focus of this interview is primarily just on small business, but we are going to be working with our nonprofit organizations like Center Foundation and United Way to try to get some relief to nonprofits, as well as, you know, other nonprofits, again, throughout the county. We're also going to be reaching out to municipalities and try to help them get some relief and support for a lot of the personal protective equipment, or PPE, and anything related to trying to stop the spread of the COVID-19. So we'll be reaching out to them as well. So the first round, the first priority that we're working on right now is a small business. And we really have been running. This is not a situation where we've been walking slowly. We've been running pretty quickly here. And we're very, very fortunate. What I'm very grateful for is that we do have great partnerships like with SBDC. So, you know, Elizabeth, you and your team, you know, Will and Tim have been great because you've helped us with the application process, a lot of the documentation side of things. Our main goal is, again, as Commissioner Higgins mentioned, you know, being a business owner, having in the past applied for these types of grants, sometimes it's incredibly frustrating when you go to apply for them and then the site crashes, or, you know, everything isn't together, or there's no the documentation. So we've been running really quickly to get this up and out there, but we also want to make sure that we have all of, like, the spine and the backbone of everything that needs to happen, so this is a smooth process.
Yeah, I know that you're really trying to comb over every detail, and I've kind of seen that from the back end. So I really appreciate that detailed focus. Are there certain types of businesses that are more likely to receive grant funds than others? I know that, you know, with the other grants, there's been different scoring matrix and stuff. Is that something Centre County is doing?
Yes. So one of our main goals is that we want to be fair and equitable and make sure that we're treating all businesses in an equal fashion. And so what our primary focus is, whenever you had mentioned rounds, so whenever the application process goes online, every business will have a 2-week period, 14 days, to get their application completed. So it isn't one of those things where you're like, oh my gosh, I got to get this in, or it's, you know, before the site crashes, or you know, first come, first serve. It is going to be a 14-day period, and then the first batch, or the first round of checks that will be administered, will be for businesses that have not received any CARES Act money, and that's specifically what our primary focus is, the first round. So if you've received the PPP, or the Paycheck Protection Program, or the EIDL, the Emergency Disaster Loan, you still are eligible to apply. Don't say, oh boy, I can't do it. You're still eligible. It's just the first round is going to go to businesses that have received nothing. And so that's the primary focus in the first go of this.
That sounds good. We did have a question come in, and I'm wondering if you could be a little bit more specific. We discussed nonprofits, and you kind of alluded to foundations that were nonprofits, but this question is, how about a small business that is a nonprofit corporation?
Well, this particular grant is for 501c3 and 50119s, I believe. Is that correct, Mark?
Yes, the 501c3 is far and away the most common designation used for nonprofits. The C19 is nonprofits focusing on veterans. I know C6 is another common designation, oftentimes used by economic development groups. Unfortunately, the way the federal legislation was written, once we get around to the small business grant, which we figure, the nonprofit grant, which we figure there'll probably be at least a couple hundred of those, we can only give it to C3s and C17s. That's the federal rules.
Okay, sounds good. And we did have another question that I can take. Is this the same for Lycoming County? And if you're headquartered in Lycoming County, if your business is headquartered in Lycoming County, I encourage you to check on the county government website for Lycoming County. If you have any questions, you can definitely reach out to the SBDC and we could help point you in that direction.
Yeah, their website is www.lyco.org.
Okay, thank you for that.
That's what I love about this team. Everybody pitches in and helps each other and helps whatever we can do. So I really appreciate that.
Yeah. If you're just joining us, I want to remind you, if you're on Facebook, you're welcome to ask questions in the comment section. Also on Zoom, we can take those questions in the chat or the Q&A feature, either is fine. Mark, I wanted to ask you, Mary Kay mentioned a little bit about the size criteria of the business. Can you reiterate that a little bit? Is there a size of the business that we're looking at for funding with these grants?
Yes, Mary Kay mentioned it, but I'll go into more detail. The business could be of any type that is for profit, corporation, LLC, S corporation, B corporation, limited partnership, doesn't matter, just as long as it's a for-profit business. The federal rules state very clearly that they need to have less than 100 employees, but in Centre County, that is the overwhelming majority of our businesses. Because as I remember from reading like the top 30 employers in Centre County, I believe the 30th employer is in the low hundreds for terms of number of employees anyway. Additionally, there is an exception. If your business is considered to be in the tourism industry, then there is no size limit to the number of employees that you can have. So if you're a small business, less than 100 employees, headquartered in Centre County, please turn in an application if you did receive the PPP or EIDL loans. If you have more than 100 employees and you consider yourself to be in the tourism industry, please apply as well. Also do want to mention that if you're a franchisee of a major corporation, but the franchise runs the local business and you are headquartered here in Centre County, you're also still eligible.
That's helpful, thank you. And Mary Kay, this next question is for you. Are there any businesses or types of businesses that cannot apply?
Yes. And so I'm just going, I have some notes that I'm just going to read so I make sure that I get this accurate. So if you're part of a government owned entity, such that would be like, a good example of that would be like a parking garage or something that a government entity would be handling, you would not be eligible. If the applicant is a franchisee, but it is independently owned, it has to be, you have to reside here or headquartered here in Centre County. You can't be somewhere else. Again, this is a Centre County grant, so we're really focusing on that. We also have, if the applicant is not a subsidiary company or controlled by another company, passive real estate holding companies, or an entity holding a passive investment in a small business without some sort of operational ties here to that business in Centre County. So what again, our main focus is most of what makes up the fabric of Centre County is our small businesses. So I think the other that cannot apply, they can get help in other ways. So for us, it's really important to focus on, and I'm very, very happy that the Centre County Commissioners have elected to really focus in on that. And if you don't mind me mentioning, just recently, Governor Wolf announced outside of the Centre County grant, but there are other small business grants that are through the DCED, Department of Community and Economic Development website. So, you know, there's other help out there, but we really want to help the residents of Centre County.
Yeah, that's great. I have seen a lot of work go into doing that here. I know that a lot of small businesses, well, not a lot, but some have taken part in the PPP program, in the EIDL program. And you mentioned, you know, the first round of funding won't be for those types of businesses. Could you explain a little bit more? And should people who have received those funds still apply?
Yes. So you had mentioned, Elizabeth, that we have, you know, a scoring matrix, a process, and that's what our team has really been working on. I can't emphasize that enough. If people are saying, gosh, when's this going out there? We really need the money. And we really do understand that. But the thing that we want to do is have that fair and equitable process. And so we've developed, or in the process of developing, a scoring matrix. And so we have that tied into it. If you have received PPP or an EIDL loan or grants or other money coming in, it's still okay to apply. It's just we're focusing in on the residents and the businesses of Centre County that have not received that first and foremost, but you are still eligible to apply for that, and we encourage you to.
That's good.
I wanted to mention we are moving as fast as we can, but as an example, DCED had a meeting with the Statewide County Commissioners Association last week, just specifically on these COVID block grants. And at the end of the meeting, there were still over 200 unanswered questions about how counties are allowed to distribute the money and what type of distribution would end up possibly in a clawback of those funds. The very, very initial guidelines from DCED really downplayed the PPP and EIDL receiving businesses, and myself and a broad variety of other commissioners throughout the state pushed back against that very, very hard. And so that's why we're going to have a first round of checks to businesses that did not receive those two programs, but we will have a second round of checks, say hopefully two to 3 weeks later, that will go to the businesses that received those programs. I've been speaking with dozens of different Centre County small businesses, and there seems to be a tendency for some of the larger ones, and by larger I mean, you know, 20 employees, 50 employees, to actually have been able to take advantage of those programs. But that doesn't mean they're still not experiencing significant need and significant difficulty in the current pandemic.
That's a good note. And just kind of a logistics question, and you may not have this answer yet, but if you put an application in the beginning, in the first round, do you need to put in another application for the second round? No? Okay.
That's a great question, Elizabeth. What we're doing is, and we really are fortunate, Commissioner Higgins has a great relationship with the SBDC. So they're going to really help us a lot in that if there are questions about the grant, if people are having difficulty applying for the grant, they're really going to be our go-to people that will help us with that. So once you apply for it, you do not need to apply for it again a second time.
Okay. Yeah, and a little bit later, we'll get into a little bit more of the logistics, you know, how to apply and that kind of thing. But let's get back to another question about just who's eligible to apply. Are there any other guidelines, such as business start date or anything like that, that we need to be aware of when submitting an application?
Thank you. Yes, there are. So the businesses must have been in business prior to March 1st, 2020. And also we are being very mindful that any business that has defaulted on any federal, state, local, or commercial loan within the last 15 years would not be eligible either. Those are two conditions.
Okay, that's good to know. Mark, are there any other guidelines that small businesses should adhere to if they receive the grant funds?
Yes, there, of course, are a broad variety of rules. Mary Kay was mentioning, no default on commercial loans. You need to be paid up on all of your income tax, your sales tax, your local property taxes. But another guideline outlined by the state of Pennsylvania is that the applicant, all owners and employees agree to abide by any of the DCED, the governor's, or the Department of Health's COVID-19 actions and orders.
That's a good note. I think that's really important that as a community, we kind of come together and abide by those guidelines. And I like that it's kind of outlined in this as well. So let's skip gears a little bit as we talk about the application, the actual application. What do business owners need to prepare in order to apply for this application? Is there kind of a short list that you can give us, Mary Kay?
Certainly. Whenever we get this, the application process, we're going to be asking you some things that you're going to know off the top of your head. We're trying to make this as simple as possible. We've been working with Chad Joyce, who is our Chief Information Officer here at Center County Government, and he's amazing. And he is really helping us with the process using a software called Qualtrics, which I never heard of 3 weeks ago, but I know a lot about it now. And so what they're going to be asking we're going to be asking for is, of course, business information, the applicant's information, and that applicant's relationship to the business, your EIN number, when your date was established, your NAICS codes. And so we will have a link to that if you don't know what that is. And then we'll be asking you for, this is some of the things that you want to start making sure you get from your QuickBooks, or if you have to go through your drawers for your receipts, we're going to be asking you for detailed expense and income information from March through June. We're going to ask you, we're going to be comparing it from 2019 to 2020 to try to get that comparison. Our goal is to try to make sure we give to businesses that have experienced a loss and that have not been made whole with some of the other programs. So that's why we're asking for that information. We'll be asking you for information about if you receive PPP and EDIL loans or anything else. We're going to be asking you for that data again, so we can compare the loss versus what you've gained, and then to make sure what we're trying to again do is not give this to businesses. There are some businesses that, not a lot, but there are some businesses that are doing quite well right now in certain industries. So if you've experienced loss, that's what we're going to be asking you to provide us. We will be asking you to upload your 2018 and 2019 tax return, as well as we're going to be asking you for the completion of a W-9. And then also, as Elizabeth and Commissioner Higgins had mentioned, we're going to be asking you to complete a certification statement, which is really just a listing of things such as, I'm going to follow the Governor Wolf's process for COVID-19 procedures, making sure that you haven't defaulted on loans. So it's a series of questions, a series of statements that you certify to. So that's some of the main things that we will be asking you to complete in the application.
That's great. Yeah, I know that it sounds like a long list, but I think businesses right now are kind of used to this process, especially if they've applied for other types of funding, disaster funding. And to be clear, if you don't have your 2019 tax return done yet, if you're on extension, is that okay?
Yes, so they would just give us the tax return, the most recent tax return that they have.
Okay.
There are some businesses in that situation.
Okay. I did have a question come in, and maybe we can address this. The question is, how will the impact on the business be documented? When I applied for my CDFI grant, it requested income during that time, but the income that I had to claim was for January, February prior to the pandemic. Because of that, it appeared that my business was not impacted. However, my business has not made money during the impacted period. Will there be a means to explain or show that? If you're kind of confused, let me summarize. I actually might know this situation. The change in the business got geared up at a different time. Like she just started her business. So really the time frame that you're looking to show impact won't show her impact. So it may be better to show impact for, say, the summer months when she had really started, her business was really going. But then, you know, January through February of the prior year, she was just getting started and wasn't making as much. So she had left her other job to start a business. So she was in business.
I mean, what we're going to be doing is we're going to be asking you, we are doing our best to compare apples to apples. Mm-hmm. So we will be asking, you know, for the time frame that from all businesses at the same time frame. We will be putting in some notations for that. But again, we want to be as fair and equitable as we can. So sometimes it's, you know, there may be situations that are special circumstances and she or he can make notations about that on the application. But we are going to be asking, you know, they're going to be, the software process is very much, you know, drop downs and adding the calculations in, and it's going to be just as consistent as possible.
Yeah, I think that's an important note that, you know, certain situations will be looked at specifically, but you know, there is a scoring matrix, but there will be more detail to be offered. So, Carolyn, I hope that answers your question. Let's go back to talking about the documentation, and we talked about documentation for application. What about after you receive the funds? Will there be any follow-up documentation or reporting?
Yes, so this, how this is written is you don't have to send us a report back to say this is how we've used the funds. I'll talk about municipalities, that's a different situation, but for small businesses, this is, you know, again, the certification statement and what you've signed off on the application, we're gonna believe your word that you're using it for eligible expenses. I also just want to note, as Commissioner Higgins said, this is federal money coming through the state of Pennsylvania, the DCED money. We are going to be heavily scrutinized for this at the Center County government. So matter of fact, DCED is coming in next week already just at the to help give us a baseline to make sure that we're off to the right start. So if for any reason that we find that there's something going on or we hear that there's a problem, we may have to request for additional information. But that isn't our intent to go out there and be stopping in, checking in, or asking you to do any reporting as far as follow-up. One follow-up we will be asking for, one thing that we're going to be, as you're certifying your application, we're going to be asking, you know, how much did you receive in from grants, loans, and such. And if something comes in after the fact, after it was, gosh, you submitted this on, say, September 1st, and you get something on September 10th, we are going to ask you just to contact Center County government. We're setting up a process for that. Most likely it will be Jason Moser, our controller's office, just to notify us. But that's just, again, to kind of keep it as tight of a process, fair and equitable as a process as possible.
Okay,
right, so since these are federal funds, at the far back end, DCED is going to be auditing what the county's doing. Our controller's office will be auditing what we've done, and then our outside auditors will also audit everything. But I would guess that the number of business grants that all three groups together would be looking at would be a few percent on a random basis. So yes, for most businesses, we're probably, hopefully not going to be recontacting you specifically about this grant. Just make sure you spend the money in the ways that are appropriate and approved, and that'll also be in the application. And there's actually a lot of expenses you could use this money for.
Yeah, and we'll get into that in just a second. Actually, that was my next question. But it is in the certification statement, you know, that you will spend the money appropriately. And of course, with any grant program and anytime you get involved with a federal or state grant, you do have the option, or there is the ability to go back and ask for documentation to show how you spent your funds. So although that's not a pillar of this grant, it's always a possibility, even from the federal or state level. So you did just mention the qualified expenses. There's a pretty long list. Do you want to kind of go down what that list might look like?
Certainly. So these are things that I'm sure most businesses have, you know, again, in their QuickBooks or their Excel sheets, or if they're working with accountants, or just in, again, your own personal records, your file folders at home. But the qualified expenses would be rent, mortgage, interest, utility bills, cable, internet, phone, and spoilage. So again, if you were in a situation, if you're a restaurant or you have something that can't be used, that would be considered spoilage. PPE purchases, again, personal protective equipment. So if you're in a business that has a lot of customers coming in and you have your hand sanitizers, you have to be using additional Clorox wipes, anything that you need for your employees as far as masks and things like that. That's part of this as well that you can apply for to be reimbursed. Again, cleaning supplies. If any of us can find the Clorox wipes, maybe we would be able to use those as expenses, but things like that. Another one would be unemployment compensation costs, that if you have, that would also be considered. And really kind of a major umbrella that is just any cost associated with the preparation of your place of business that is getting you ready to help stop the spread of COVID-19. So those are the types, those are the key expenses. That isn't all encompassing, but that's going to, we feel it's going to be most of it as far as the expenses.
I think one example of that last bucket of expenses would be a restaurant or a retail type business that would say purchase outdoor tables, outdoor seating, outdoor umbrellas, anything that helped you move part of your operation outdoors.
Yeah, we've seen a lot of businesses doing that right now to, you know, kind of give themselves some more seating capacity since they're limited to their indoor seating capacity. So that's good to know that that would be covered. We did have a question come in, and I'm not sure if this is one that we're ready to answer or that you guys have defined, but what is the range of amount that will be given?
Want me to try to cover that one, Mary Kay?
Please, Commissioner.
Yeah, we haven't nailed it down yet, but I will say that there are a few counties nationally that are ahead of us. Some of them top it out at $3 grand. I think we're going to go higher than that. Some of them it's 5, some of it's 8, some of it's 10, some 25. I've seen a few that go as high as 50,000. We're just going to have to take a look. I mean, if we only get a couple hundred applications and we have 6 million that we want to use to support our local small businesses, those could be some pretty sizable grants. If we receive a couple thousand applications, you know, then our maximum might be have to be a little bit toward the smaller end, because we're trying to help everybody who qualifies for the program.
That's great explanation. Thank you, Mark, for that. Mary Kay, you answered this a little bit, just kind of alluded to it earlier. I know that one of the certification statement items is that if you receive another grant after you receive this grant, that you have to go back and report that to the Center County government. Can you explain a little bit how that would affect your actual grant, or is that still being worked out with the Comptroller's office?
I mean, we still are. So right now, what I would consider this last couple weeks is we're doing a lot of back end, and my whole process for this. So my position is a 6-month fixed term position. So I'm not going to be here long term for this. And so what I'm trying to do is to make sure that we have processes in place and procedures. So we've been working a lot with the Comptroller's office, finance office, to make sure that we have it in place. And so we're working out a lot of details, this being one of them. But what we are trying to do is to make sure that if people, again, we're trying to compare apples to apples. So if we're in the decision-making process and somebody is asking for $10,000 and then, boy, they just received $8,000 from another entity, that's going to help us perhaps put another business who's in greater need ahead of that. Because we do want to make sure that we can, as Commissioner Higgins said, we want to make sure that the most amount of people can be served, the most amount of businesses can be served.
Yeah, that makes sense. Okay, we do need to finish up, so I wanted to remind if anybody is joining us on Facebook, we're going to have a few more moments for questions, so you're welcome to drop those into the comment section on Facebook. If you're here on Zoom with us, you're welcome to use the Q&A function to type those questions. So let's finish up with the actual logistics. Everybody's going to want to know this. Mark, this question is for you. Where will small business actually apply for this grant?
So within the next 2 weeks, we should have our application portal up on the county website. And as Mary Kay mentioned, we've actually had to purchase some much more robust software to handle an application process where you might have 50 companies all live, all at the same time, all trying to upload a large variety of different documents. We're also upgrading the internet pipe as it comes into the county administrative office. We will have the ability for all of the applicants to download reference documents, to even download the application. But our strong preference is that you fill out that application online, because then there's not going to be any, say, typos introduced as we, take the data off of a paper form and put it into our scoring system. Also helps out the SBDC tremendously if all the data is electronic as well. So should be up within the next 2 weeks. We're going to need a couple weeks to process, figure out exactly how much money goes to which group. We'll be relying heavily on the SBDC to make recommendations to us for that. Then we send out the first round of checks. That might be a 2-week delay or so, and then we send out the second round of checks to the companies that receive the PPP and EIDL programs. So it will be online. It should be robust enough to have 50 plus companies on it at the same time, and it's going to be up there for a full 2 weeks. But once we hit that deadline, we've hit that deadline. We're not going to take any more applications after that. Do want to mention there's at least a couple of counties where their application period was 1 day. So we think we're being pretty fair and pretty transparent about allowing people a full 2-week period to gather their documents, fill everything out and upload it. Also, I've been told by businesses in some other counties that other counties' applications are 2, 3, 4 times longer than ours has been to this point. Now, I do know of one county where theirs was half our length, but they were also a county that were just giving out pretty much a straight $3,000 to anybody who applied. So please watch for the news reports, work with the SBDC and other economic development groups. We will try to make as much noise as possible once those applications are up, and then you've got 2 weeks and then it's over.
Right, and just to reiterate that all businesses should apply during that 2-week period, and even if they're not funded in the first round, their application stays in. That's correct, right?
Correct, yes. Their application will stay in. I just, as we've been talking, had a friend do some research on the number of PPP loans in Center County. This might be a little bit of an overcount, but when he was working in the database, he saw that there were about 1,757 organizations that at least had an office in Center County that received the funding. But obviously, if we have something like 4,600 to 4,700 total small businesses in Center County, that's, help me with the math here, maybe a little more than a third of the businesses in the county. So a lot of the smaller businesses, please apply. If you meet the requirements, we're going to get you at least some money, and it's going to be a county check and no matching requirements. Once you apply, that's pretty much everything we need. There might be a couple % chance next year that you'd be randomly chosen to be audited, but it's just a couple %.
Right. Well, that's great. I have one more question that came in, and I'm actually going to answer it by sharing my screen and putting up the contact information that I have in my next slide. So let me go ahead and put that up. The question was, what is the county website? So here it is. If you're on Facebook or on Zoom, you should be able to see this now. The Center County PA.gov is the county website, but specifically for this grant, you can go to centercountypa.gov/crbg, and you'll find that there. Also, Mary Kay Williams' contact information is up here. You might want to give her some time to finish up getting these details before you email her any questions. But the SBDC too, we're here to answer lots of questions. So if you want to start talking through some of those questions as we're waiting for the grant to be released, you can definitely contact us at info@sbdc.psu.edu. Also, you can sign up now to become a client of the SBDC. We really recommend that throughout the process of your small business, where our mission is to help start, grow, and prosper small businesses. So, you know, anywhere along the line of your small business, we can even start talking about PPP loan forgiveness and those kind of things. That information has been dropped in the chat on Facebook in the comment section, as well as in the chat and Zoom. So you should be able to just copy and paste that there. Also wanted to let you know next week, we'll be talking about PPP loan forgiveness. So if you're one of those 1,750 businesses in Center County that received a PPP loan and you're now looking at forgiveness, we're going to have 2 representatives from the SBA actually talking about all the PPP loan forgiveness guidelines. Again, we're here every week live on Facebook at 8:30 a.m. or you can join us on Zoom if you're not a Facebook person. So we encourage you to join us next week for the SBA talk about PPP loan forgiveness. Again, like I said, if you are a small business in the area and you'd like to connect with the SBDC, we offer one-on-one consulting with our business consultants, trainings, and I know that we're actually having a QuickBooks training coming up in a few weeks. We have some different growth wheel type trainings going on. So depending on what you need for your business, if you want to transfer over to QuickBooks, we're doing that. If you want to grow your business, we have a growth wheel program right now launching at the end of the month. So different trainings to help businesses in the different areas that they're at. You can find all that information on our website at sbdc.psu.edu. Or you can email us. We're doing everything virtual right now, so we'll see you through Zoom most of the time if you're doing a one-on-one consultation. And also, we're on Facebook, we're on LinkedIn, we're on Instagram, we're on Twitter. So any of this information, you can kind of follow us on there and get updates that way. I think that's all I have today. I wanted to thank Mary Kay and Mark Higgins, Commissioner Higgins, for joining us today. It's been so great. I know there's been lots of questions and kind of, you know, rumors floating around. So we've kind of cleared the air a bit on that. So it's been really great to talk to you guys. And I know that people will continue to just search out that information as you guys, your offices continue to work out the details. So thank you so much for taking your time to explain all that to us and to our clients. I really appreciate it.
Thank you for the opportunity. I appreciate it.
Yes, thanks, Elizabeth. Very, very happy we were able to speak directly to a large fraction of the small businesses in Center County through the technology of Facebook Live. Thanks.
Yeah, thank you. Okay, well, we'll see you guys next week if you join us again on Quick Connect, and have a great Tuesday morning.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Bye.